everybody! So if you didn't notice, it is the summer of 2022 and I am filming that from June 2021, so it's been a whole year. So I essentially spent the last 2 semesters on campus at USC, and honestly, I don't know, I kind of forgot that I made this video, but I was looking back on it and there was some pretty hopeful information, I think. Like, if I was an upcoming freshman, I would want that information. I was a bit hesitant to upload this onto YouTube just because the whole thing is basically blurry, to be honest. I guess, yeah, the whole thing is blurry, so you'll see. So I know it's really popular right now for students to give their review of their time at their university or college. So I kind of wanted to hop on the trend, and this is my review of USC fall 2020 and spring 2021 as a psychology student. But honestly, I don't know. The whole point of making the video was about the content of it, not really the quality, even though people want good quality in a video. So I don't know. Hope you enjoy, and if you have any questions, because yeah, I spent the last year on campus at USC, so if you want anything, you know, I'm here. So send me a DM. Hope you enjoy the video. Bye! Okay, so first off, I major in psychology and I minor in sociology, and both of those are in the USC College of Dornsife, College Letters of Arts and Sciences, I believe. Honestly, I don't really know. Hashtag fight on. Okay, so yeah, so both of my majors and minors are in that college. Oh wait, okay, if you all see me like looking at my screen, this is just me looking at my computer because I want to make sure that I give everyone, you know, the right information. Don't want to just be going off the top of my head. So yeah, okay. So I'm a student in the USC College of Dornsife Letters of Arts and Sciences, and basically I believe that's like the biggest college at USC. They literally have like everything. And side note, I thought that I was special, like majoring in psychology, but apparently it's like one of the most popular majors in Dornsife. So yeah. Okay, so before I start off, I kind of just wanted to give basically things to mention, like things to know being a student at USC. One thing I highly recommend that people look at before scheduling their classes is Rate My Professor, because if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a website where students from a bunch of different colleges and universities, they give their review of their teachers for the semesters, and USC has their own little page, so you can just look up the class, look up the teacher that you whatever that you're thinking of at USC, and basically look at all of the students' reviews, whether they like the teacher, whether they don't, if it's an easy class or if it's not. So I highly recommend doing that because I did that, and it was honestly like my saving grace for all of my classes, my fall and spring semester. So highly recommend that. Okay, another thing I recommend is don't be afraid to ask your professor for help either before or after class during office hours, because like if you don't know the information, like you need to know the information. So I highly recommend going to the professor, asking for whatever help they can give you, and if you're scared of going to office hours, honestly, in my opinion, it's better to have the professor know that you at least want to try in their class rather than they just think that like, oh, they're not trying in my class, they don't want to do well, whatever they think is well. So I really recommend that you just reach out to your professor if you have any problems. I also think it's really helpful to get to know your TA, depending on if you have a teacher's assistant or TA in your class, because more often than not, if the professor isn't leading the class, they'll have the TA lead the class, and in my experience, it's really helpful to get to know the TA, like give them a heads up if you really don't understand the information, because more often than not, the TA will like do everything they can to make sure that you know. I mean, I know that some TAs aren't that great, I'll get to that later, But if you have a really good TA, they'll really do everything that they can to make sure that you know everything that you need to know to do the best in the class. So I highly recommend getting to know them. Okay, another thing is don't be afraid to make study groups. If you're really confused, you don't feel like going to your professor or your TA, just reach out to some other classmates. More often than not, you're not the only person that's like struggling. So I feel like it's really good to get to see what other students know, what they don't know, because I feel like if everyone puts their heads together, you're going to get something out of it. So I really think that it's helpful to make study groups with other students as well. Okay, so I'm going to start off with going through basically all of my classes, my fall semester and then my spring semester, and giving my personal experience with them and my tips on how to do well in them. Okay, so one of the first classes I took my fall semester was my Spanish class, and basically for USC Dornside, they require that all of their students take a language class if they didn't pass, aka get a 4 or 5 on an AP exam for their language at the high school. And me, I didn't want to try taking an AP Spanish, AP Latin, AP Chinese at my high school, and so I just didn't do it. I went up to Honor Spanish 4, which is like the class right underneath AP Spanish. And so yeah, if you don't pass an AP language class at your high school, USC Dornside requires that all students take at least up to level 3 or equivalent at USC. So yeah, and typically USC has all of its students take a placement exam to place into whatever language they want to at USC. However, because of COVID and like everything kind of being different, they just this year had students basically email them telling them what class they were in last for their language at their high school, and then they basically just kind of placed you into a class based off of that without having to take a placement exam. And so me being an honors Spanish 4, they placed me into Spanish 2 at USC. And so being that, like, I have to take Spanish 2 and then Spanish 3, and then I'm done with my language classes. And I'll get more into that with Spanish 3 later. And yeah, in my experience, my Spanish class was really easy. Again, I used Rate My Professor, and my Spanish professor was literally a gem. She was so helpful, so nice, so gracious with everything in Corona and everything being asynchronous. So yeah, I highly recommend using Rate My Professor, and I really recommend using that. Yeah. Anyway, I really recommend using Rate My Professor, and as long as you show up to your Spanish class on Zoom, kind of pay attention, I think that you'll do well. Okay, so another big thing at USC is their general education requirements, and if I'm right, I believe that all colleges kind of have their students do this throughout the year, throughout their school year experience at the college. But basically, USC has a bunch of different categories that they expect students to take either 1 to 2 classes in. Like, for example, they have 8 categories in general education at USC. It is the arts, humanistic inquiry, social analysis, life sciences, physical sciences, quantitative reasoning, citizenship in a diverse world, and traditions and historical foundations. So clearly, like, each of these categories are very different from each other, and USC requires that students take them. There's not really like a order that you have to take them. Like, you can basically take any class whenever you want, but like don't take them all like at the last minute your senior year, because more often than not, like based off the demand for the classes, you won't be able to finish. And also I think it's just kind of easier having everything spaced out. And another thing is that some of these classes in the categories for your general education courses, you don't have to take them if you pass them, the equivalent to them in your high school. For example, my junior year, I took AP US History and I got a 4 on the exam. And so USC is not making me take traditions and historical foundations because AP US History like cancels that out basically. Like I don't have to take it. And I know that USC does that for most classes, but if you search up like general education requirements at USC, like search it up on Google or something, and they basically have like all the AP classes that are the equivalent to them at USC. And so that basically tells you if you pass this AP exam, you don't have to take this GE requirement and that. And another thing about USC GE classes is I feel like USC does a really good job of giving students like a bunch of different options for their general education requirements because like it's really my sister, she went to a different school and she told me that like all of the classes were pretty basic, like no one really enjoyed them. But at USC, they have a really good they do a really good job of giving students a bunch of different options if they're not interested in one thing or another. So, yeah. Okay, so going off of the general education requirements for USC, another thing that they have required for all freshmen, whether you're a fall admit or spring admit, is taking a GESM, which stands for General Education Seminar. And basically that's required for all freshmen, and it's a bunch of different seminars in 6 of the different categories for GE requirements. They have it in the arts, humanistic inquiry, social analysis, life sciences, physical sciences, and quantitative reasoning. Okay, so for all of that, like they have a bunch of different seminars in any of those categories. And it really just depends on the topic you have and the professor. So like basically all the seminars are very different. And like for me, I decided to take humanistic inquiry and my class was called Daughters of Africa, Black Women in US History. And I honestly loved that class so much. The professor was a gem. It was actually really interesting because like my 13 something years of secondary education, whatever, like they didn't teach me anything about Black women in US history. So it was a really informative class and I highly recommend that anyone take it. Okay, so actually going to my major, a class I took fall semester was Psych 100. And again, if you pass AP Psych, you don't have to take this class, but you know, Corona was hard, so your girl didn't pass AP Psych, but it's okay because literally, if you're planning on becoming a psychiatrist or just want to go to med school with a psych degree, like USC highly recommends that all psych majors take Psych 100 just because it's basically like a good foundation and like it's really good to have it later on because you learn stuff that you didn't learn in AP Psych or something in AP Psych like they really stressed about it, but it really wasn't that important. So I really think that Psych 100 is a really good class to take. Also, the professor that I had was amazing. She was literally so good. So again, I keep on saying this and I'll say it again. Look at Rate My Professor because it really just, your class experience depends on the professor that you have. So I highly recommend that you get a professor that you want and that'll really just like give you a better experience learning. Okay, so another class that I took that was related to my psychology class was Math 114, which is basically a statistics class and it kind of takes the place of AP Stat, but again, they highly recommend that like anyone kind of take it if you're in psychology because it really gives you the foundation of everything that you need to know going forward, especially if you want to get like something into the research field of psychology. So I really highly recommend that you take that. And this is one of those cases where like I went more to the professor than I did the TA, because the professor, like, he really tried his best to like make sure that we were involved in the class. Like, he wanted to know if we didn't understand anything. The TAs, they like really just kind of had us sitting on Zoom for 60 minutes. Like, we really didn't learn anything. But like I kind of had a little study group going in Group Me, so that was fine. And I also like regularly talk to my statistics professor. I would go to office hours, or if he had like a study session before like a test or quiz, like I made sure that I went to those. And if I just didn't have a question like on a test, or I kind of questioned my grade on a test, like if you just shoot them an email, more than likely they'll give you like a response. And if you're too scared to like ask them, just think of like it's better than to not knowing. Like maybe the professor really did give you the wrong grade in your exam, and that could have pushed you up from like an A minus to an A or something. So I really think that is helpful to have. Another like quick little tangent side note, USC doesn't have any A pluses. I know that like that's an anomaly. Like a lot of different colleges, they have like the A plus system, but for some reason USC, like the highest you can get is an A at USC. So I just think that like, if anyone's interested, that's kind of an interesting thing to know. Okay, so those are all of my classes from my fall semester, and basically the takeaway from that is just make sure that you know who your professor is, even if you like the class that you sign up for doesn't have the professor until like the first day of class. Like just try your best to go and rate my professor, see how that teacher is, because even if like you end up having a not so great teacher, um, more often than not you can switch out of the class. I think USC gives students like a week or 2 weeks. Don't quote me on that, I don't really know for sure, but I think they give you some time to like switch out of the class at the beginning of the school year, just to like see where you kind of want to be situated. So I think that it's really important to like just make sure you get to know your professor, your class, and everything. However, one important thing to know about Rate My Professor is that some of the reviews can be a little biased. Like if the professor is a really good professor, but like the students just don't like them, they might like mention on like the clothing of the professor, or like they just didn't like their teaching style. I do think that everyone is different. Like Rate My Professor gives you like a general idea of who the professor is and like what the class they teach, but it's important to like kind of take some of the critical or like reviews with a grain of salt, because if they're just kind of being nitpicky with like everything the professor does, I think they just kind of like had an individual bad experience, and that shouldn't really be put to blame on the professor. It's just kind of more of a situational type of thing. So that's one important thing to think about. Okay, so going into my spring semester classes, it's pretty much the same, honestly. Like I did a continuation of my Spanish and math class, switched it up a little, gotta keep it interesting. Um, but yeah, okay, so the first class that I took was Spanish 3, and again, basically just a continuation of my Spanish 2 class, and also it's my last Spanish class, because again, USC requires that for you to complete your language course, you have to take a level 3 or equivalent. So taking Spanish 3 for me was my equivalent to a level 3. So this was my last class for Spanish as my language requirement. And again, my Spanish professor was literally a gem. She was honestly probably one of the most understanding professors I had about like just the circumstances of Corona. She was very like helpful with everything she did asynchronously. She was very available, like if you just wanted to email her. And again, I don't think that the language courses are too difficult. I think mainly you just have to like make sure you read the textbook. If your class requires that you buy a book, the Spanish classes do require that you read a book, and you can't really like get a used book for the Spanish classes, because like there's a specific code that each student needs to have in order to do like online assignments, and so you can't really get a used textbook, which is pretty unfortunate because Spanish textbooks at USC are literally like $130. So both semesters, 260, which in my opinion is kind of expensive, but I mean, I don't know, there's nothing you can do about it really. But yeah, as long as you read the textbook and just kind of are involved in class, because most teachers do also grade on participation, I think that's really important just to like get a good grade in the class. Okay, so another class that I took was Psych 314, and it's under the name of Psych, but it's really just a statistics class, and it's a continuation of Math 114. And for people that tested out of Math 114 with AP Stat, like this would be the first class that they go to. And I really think that it's kind of just more of the foundationals of statistics. One thing is that they really kind of want to teach you about all the technology that goes with statistics. So kind of R, Excel, SPSS. If you don't know what any of those mean, don't worry, you'll learn it in this class. I didn't know anything about any of these things except for Excel a little before taking this class. But if I do say so myself, I know a little bit of R, I know a little bit of SPSS. So that's one thing you learn in this class. Another thing is this class was kind of like the opposite of my Math 14 and kind of the teaching dynamic of it, because my professor, bless his heart, he was really trying to make sure that like we understood everything, but it was just kind of like a, I don't know, an age gap and everything. Like he would make like metaphors and similes that just like none of us could relate to. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer. But my TA was literally amazing. Like I was frequently going to him, asking him questions. By the end of the year, we were on a first name basis. Like we knew each other just because I went to him so often. But it really paid off because I got an A in the class. So just goes to show that it's really important to like make sure you know either your professor or TA, depending on the situation, or even both. I don't really think that a teacher wants their students to fail. So yeah. Okay, moving on. Another requirement that USC has its students take is RIT 150, and it's basically like the writing program to like prepare all freshmen for like college writing. Still don't really know what that means, but that's what RIT 150 is for. Um, so I'm not sure if it's only Dornsife College that requires all of its students to take it. It might be like a university-wide type of thing for all freshmen. I think it's university wide. You can probably look it up online to make sure. Um, but basically, Row 150 is just a bunch of different classes and different categories that students can have for their writing. Mine was kind of like a sociocultural type of class, and so it was really based off of social movements and like social justice. So I really enjoyed that. And another thing is just because all the classes for RIT 150 are very different, again, I think it's kind of helpful to look at your professor on rate my professor before you take the class or during the class after, whatever, because from what I've heard from other students, your experience with the class really just depends on the topic you choose and the professor that you have. Luckily, I had like a really nice professor. She was really sweet. Like she really wanted to get to know us. Like it was an awesome class. So I really enjoyed that. And another important thing about Route 150, again, is just to communicate with your teacher, because I'm pretty sure Route 150 has like a bad rep of like being a really difficult class. Like no one can get like higher than a B plus for it. But I had a pretty good experience with it. I think that as long as you like know what your professor is asking for, like you'll do well, because professors like they follow like a writing course book. So those are kind of the requirements in all of the essays that they have students write. So as long as you just like ask professor like, what are you looking for in my writing, I think that you'll do pretty well, because like you'll be doing everything that they're looking for. So there's no reason, unless like it's just completely different than what they're looking for, I think you'll do well. And my class didn't do this, but I know that some professors, there's like a writing contract where like as long as you turn in all of your assignments, your professor won't give you like any less than a B minus. You could probably look that up, like writing contract USC Route 150. I'm not completely sure about that, but I've kind of heard around that like if people sign the writing contract, they can get a B minus. And also, I believe if you get like higher than a B minus at in your class, you can like uncover your true grade, and then your real grade will show. But I'm not an expert on that, so you'll probably want to do your own research on that. Okay, yeah. So the last class I took for my spring semester was a general education requirement. I did it with the arts. It was called Dance and Pop Culture. And like, don't let the name fool you. Like, we didn't really do any dancing. I don't know how to dance, and like, I loved the class. It was amazing. The professor is literally so sweet, and she's like very knowledgeable of dance. Like, she's a professional dancer. So that was like really cool. Like, she would bring in people that she knew, just like give us a little expertise in the field. I really liked it. And yeah, she basically, the class is about like all different types of forms of dance in the United States of America, and just kind of the origins, and basically how a lot of the origins come from the African American community and the Latinx community, and just have kind of been like overtaken by popular culture in the United States. So I really highly recommend that class if you're just interested in dance. Even if you're not, I really didn't know that much about dance coming in, but like I feel like I know a lot now, at least like the US origins of a lot of popular dance. I really highly recommend that class. It's awesome. Okay, so basically that is my review of my freshman year at USC, Zoom University. Um, and if y'all want a part two, just kind of going more in depth of extracurriculars, being black at USC, life at USC once I go in the fall semester, because we're going to be on campus 2021, cross our fingers. But yeah, if you just want a part two of anything, drop a comment down below, like this video. And if you want to see more types of USC related videos, college videos, maybe even how I got into USC, kind of your choice, hit subscribe, because this is my first video and I'm planning on doing more in the future, just kind of based off of what everyone wants to see in future videos. So if you want to really see something, just comment down below. And another thing is, if there's anything I didn't cover in this video that you think I should have, or you're just kind of like more curious about something, feel free to give me a DM at my Instagram. I have the handle down below. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and see you later. Bye!